Marijuana is the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States and has grown increasingly popular as a recreational drug. Marijuana is informally called pot, weed, dope, among many other names. It is commonly smoked, mixed with food, and brewed in tea. Marijuana comes from the cannabis plant. Marijuana is used both recreationally and for medicinal purposes. Typically, marijuana used for medicinal purposes comes from the cannabis indica plant, which has the ability to act as a sedative. Marijuana used as a recreational drug comes from the cannabis sativa plant. Cannabis sativa plants are generally tall, thin, and have less dense buds than indica plants. They have a higher THC content than indica plants. THC is the chemical in marijuana that causes the high in users. While the iconic cannabis leaf often comes to mind when marijuana is mentioned, the most potent part of the plant is the buds. However, when sold, marijuana is a mixture of dried out leaves, stems, flowers, and the seeds of the plant. The marijuana plant is believed to have evolved in Central Asia. The first reference to the usage of marijuana dates back to 2737 BC in China. The cannabis plant was believed to be a medication for rheumatism, gout, and malaria. In other regions, it was used as a painkiller and for spiritual purposes. The plant entered the United States around 1910. If one had to pick a time when the drug boomed, it would be the 21st century. The usage of marijuana has significantly increased over the past decade. According to a UN report on global drug use, cannabis was the most produced, trafficked, and consumed illegal drug as of 2010. As of 2016, 25 states in the District of Columbia have laws legalizing marijuana in some form. Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and the District of Columbia have legalized marijuana for recreational use. California voters will vote on the legality of recreational use of marijuana on November 8, 2016. Federal law prohibits doctors from prescribing marijuana to individuals, but allows doctors to write a recommendation for medical marijuana. Whether or not marijuana is addictive is controversial because it has a much lower addiction rate than most drugs. Between 10 and 30% of regular users of marijuana will develop dependency, and only about 9% develop a serious addiction. Youth are typically more susceptible to addiction. 1 in every 6 teenage marijuana smokers become seriously addicted. 50 to 60% of marijuana addicts have some sort of mental illness. The time it takes to develop and overcome marijuana addictions varies amongst users. If an addiction does develop, users may visit drug rehabilitation clinics and facilities for treatment. The success rate for overcoming a marijuana addiction is between 9 and 28%. The active ingredient in marijuana that causes the high is THC. THC affects the brain of the user via the endocannabinoid system, known as the EC system. The body produces natural chemicals called cannabinoids that interact with the EC system. Cannabinoids interact with receptors to regulate how a person feels, moves, and reacts. When marijuana is used, THC enters the EC system and also interacts with these receptors. The EC system works differently from normal neuron communication because the postsynaptic neuron releases cannabinoids that then travel backwards to attach to receptors on the presynaptic neuron. Cannabinoids limit the amount of neurotransmitter that gets released by the presynaptic neuron, which in turn affects how messages are sent, received, and processed by the cell. When a person smokes marijuana, THC overwhelms the EC system by attaching to cannabinoid receptors in the brain. This prevents natural cannabinoids from attaching to receptors and doing their job of regulating communication between neurons. Cannabinoid receptors are located in many areas of the brain, so THC has a wide range of effects. After using marijuana, typical symptoms include a sense of paranoia, slowed reaction time, impaired coordination and memory, increase in appetite, impaired judgment, euphoria, and a change in pain sensitivity. Over time, THC changes how the EC system works in these areas of the brain, which can lead to problems with memory and mental health. Long-term effects include a decline in IQ, poor school performance, impaired thinking and ability to learn, and increased chance of mental illness. Smoking marijuana has also been linked to breathing problems and increased heart rate. The negative qualities of using marijuana have the potential to seriously damage lives. When making decisions regarding the use of this substance, act responsibly, keeping in mind all the consequences.